Harold Gentry had been farming with John Deere equipment since 1982. He was 71 years old, and he farmed 4,000 acres in Hardin County, Iowa, which made him one of the larger independent operators in the county. He had started with a single John Deere 4440 and a borrowed planter on 800 rented acres when he was 28 years old, and he had built the operation over 4 decades through a combination of disciplined management and a willingness to reinvest everything the farm produced back into the land and the equipment. He owned 2,800 acres outright and rented 1,200 more. He ran a fleet of 6 John Deere tractors, 2 combines, and enough implements to plant and harvest the entire acreage with his own equipment. He had never custom hired a single field operation. Everything that happened on Harold Gentry's 4,000 acres was done by Harold Gentry's equipment. That was a point of pride. It was also, Tyler had come to understand over 6 years of working alongside his grandfather, a constraint that was costing the operation money it did not know it was leaving on the table. Tyler Gentry was 27 years old. He had grown up spending summers on the farm and had come back full-time after 2 years of agricultural business at Iowa State. He was Harold's oldest daughter's son, and he was the only family member who had any real interest in taking over the operation eventually. Harold's daughter had moved to Minneapolis years ago. His son managed a grain elevator in Ames and had no desire to farm. Tyler was it. Harold knew that, and Tyler knew that, and the understanding between them, never formally stated, was that Tyler was learning the operation and Harold was teaching it, and at some point in the future the transfer would happen. Tyler had no fixed timeline for this. Harold had not offered one. They worked together, and the implicit negotiation of succession continued in the background of every decision they made together. Tyler respected his grandfather genuinely and without reservation. Harold had built something real from nothing real. The farm was the evidence of 4 decades of correct decisions made consistently under pressure. Harold knew things about the land and the weather and the markets and the machinery that Tyler could not have learned anywhere except by working alongside him. Tyler was not impatient with his grandfather's knowledge or his grandfather's methods. But Tyler was 27 years old, and he had studied agricultural economics, and he could read data. And there was one area where the data was clear, and Harold's method was costing the farm a significant and calculable amount of money every year. Harold would not take custom work. Neighbors called regularly asking if Harold's equipment could do their planting or their tillage or their spraying when their own machines were down or behind schedule. Harold always said no. He said his equipment was for his farm. He said custom work created scheduling conflicts and accelerated equipment wear and generated liability exposure he did not want. He said if the neighbors needed capacity, they should invest in their own capacity. Tyler had learned not to argue the point because Harold was immovable on it. But Tyler had also been keeping a quiet running tally of the custom work requests the farm turned down and what they would have paid. And over 3 years the number had grown to a figure that was impossible to ignore. The neighbors were paying outside operators for work. Harold's equipment could have done in the windows between Harold's own field operations. The money was there, the capacity was there, the scheduling was workable. The only thing standing between the Gentry farm and a substantial additional revenue stream was Harold's position on custom work, a position built on principles that Tyler respected but believed were costing the farm more than they were worth. Tyler had not found a way to change Harold's mind on this because Tyler had not tried to change Harold's mind. He had considered approaching it as an argument, with data and projections, but he knew Harold well enough to know that a formal presentation of evidence would be received as a challenge rather than a proposal, and Harold's response to challenges was to become more fixed rather than less. Tyler needed a different approach. He needed to show Harold the outcome before asking Harold to approve the process. He needed to create the fact and then present it. He had been waiting for the right opportunity for 2 years. The hip replacement gave it to him. Harold had been managing a bad hip since 2020. He had tried to avoid surgery because surgery meant time off the farm during a season, and Harold did not take time off during seasons. His doctor had been telling him for 2 years that the joint was deteriorating, and the longer he waited, the harder the recovery would be. In January 2022, after a fall on ice in the machine shed that was more directly related to the hip instability than Harold wanted to admit, he had agreed to the surgery. It was scheduled for February, which was the one time of year when the farm could genuinely spare him for an extended period. The surgeon said 12 weeks minimum before he could operate heavy equipment. Harold had said fine. He told Tyler the farm was his to manage for the spring. He said, "Do not buy anything, do not sell anything, and do not rearrange the shed." Tyler said he understood. Harold went into surgery on February 14th and came out successfully and went to his daughter's house in Minneapolis to recover because Ruth had said she was not going to manage his recovery on the farm, and the medical team had said he needed professional supervision for the first 3 weeks. Harold was in Minneapolis, and Tyler was on the farm alone for the first real time in 6 years. Tyler called a Massey Ferguson dealer in Ames named Doug Kramer on February 20th, 6 days after Harold's surgery. He had been in contact with Doug informally for over a year, building a relationship and gathering information without committing to anything. He told Doug he had a 12-week window and a specific idea. He did not want to buy Massey Ferguson equipment. He wanted to lease it on a seasonal contract. 3 units, 3 Massey Ferguson 8S.265 machines, fully equipped with GPS and precision planning capability. He wanted them on the farm by April 1st, and he wanted a lease structure that allowed him to return them at the end of the season with no long-term commitment. Doug said that was an unusual request, but it was workable. He had relationships with a leasing company that handled exactly this kind of seasonal arrangement for custom operators. The rate would reflect the short-term nature. Tyler said he understood. He asked Doug to run the numbers. Doug called back the following day with a lease proposal. 3 machines for 6 months at a combined monthly cost of $22,000. Total lease cost for the season would be $132,000. Tyler looked at the numbers he had been accumulating for 3 years. The custom work requests the farm had turned down, the rates the outside operators were charging, the acreage that was available within 15 miles of the Gentry farm from neighbors who had been using outside contractors for years and who had told Tyler in various informal conversations that they would prefer a local operator if one were reliable and well-equipped. Tyler called 6 of those neighbors over the following week. He laid out what he was planning. He quoted rates 10% below what they were currently paying outside contractors. 5 of the 6 said yes immediately. The 6th called back 3 days later and said yes as well. Tyler had 6 clients before the Massey Fergusons arrived. He had commitments for 4,200 acres of custom planting and tillage work. At his quoted rates, the gross revenue was $178,000. Against the lease cost of $132,000 and fuel and labor costs he estimated at $24,000, his net margin on the custom operation was projected at $22,000. He told himself he was being conservative. He was. The 3 Massey Ferguson 8S.265 machines arrived on April 3rd. Tyler and 2 hired men spent a day going through the GPS setup and the precision planting calibration with a technician Doug sent from Ames. The machines were impressive in a way that Tyler, who had grown up on high-quality John Deere equipment, had not entirely anticipated. The cab technology was different from what he knew, but it was good. The precision agriculture integration was clean and intuitive. The power delivery under load was exceptional. He had nothing negative to say about any of it. He put one machine to work on the first customer's ground on April 5th and never looked back. The spring of 2022 was good for field work. Dry enough to get on the ground early, warm enough to push planning ahead of schedule, not so dry that anyone was worried about moisture. Tyler ran the 3 Massey Fergusons alongside Harold's John Deere fleet, using the Deere equipment for the home farm and the Massey Fergusons for the custom accounts. He hired a 3rd operator to cover the volume. He managed the scheduling himself, which was the most demanding part of the operation. Coordinating 3 external customer schedules with the home farm schedule required attention to detail and constant communication with the clients. Tyler handled it. He had a whiteboard in the shop office with every field mapped and every window tracked. He updated it every morning. He missed no commitments. He ran behind on one client's account for 3 days when rain hit the eastern section of the county, and then made it up with a double-shift push when the ground dried. The client called him afterward and said he was the most reliable custom operator he had used in 15 years. Tyler thanked him and moved on to the next account. Harold called every week from Minneapolis. The calls were brief because Harold did not enjoy phone conversations and because his daughter had limited his screen time as part of his recovery protocol, which Harold found infantilizing and which Tyler privately thought was probably necessary. Harold asked about the home farm. Tyler reported accurately on planting progress, input applications, equipment status. He did not mention the Massey Fergusons. Harold did not ask about them because Harold did not know they existed. This was the part of the plan that Tyler was most uncomfortable with. He was not lying to his grandfather. He was not doing anything with Harold's equipment or Harold's money without Harold's knowledge. The Massey Ferguson lease was funded from the custom operations revenue, which was Tyler's own earnings from his role in the operation. But he was operating on his grandfather's farm without his grandfather's explicit knowledge of a significant part of what was happening on it, and Tyler understood that Harold would have a view on that when he found out. Tyler had prepared for that view. He had the numbers, he had the accounts, he had the documentation, he had the outcome. He was going to present Harold with the full picture when Harold came home, and he was going to let the numbers make the argument he could not have made hypothetically. By the end of May, Tyler had completed 3,800 of the committed 4,200 custom acres. By mid-June, he was done with all 6 accounts and had taken on 2 additional requests that had come in as word spread through the county about the quality and reliability of the work. Final custom acreage for the spring season was 6,800 acres across 8 clients. Tyler sat with his accounting at the end of June and went through the numbers. Gross custom revenue had come in at $211,000 against his original projection of $178,000. The additional clients had pushed it above plan. Total costs, lease, fuel, labor, and incidentals had been $104,000. Net profit from the custom operation was $107,000. Tyler looked at the number for a long time. $107,000 in one spring season from equipment that he did not own, funded entirely from the revenue the operation generated, with no capital risk to the home farm. He ran the projection forward. If he converted the lease to ownership of 3 Massey Ferguson 8S machines, the economics would improve substantially in year 2, because the lease cost, the largest single expense, would be replaced by financing costs that were significantly lower. A custom operation of this scale, owned rather than leased, would net conservatively $250,000 per year after all costs. He added that to the home farm's annual net. The combined operation was a substantially different business than what Harold had built. Not because Harold had built it wrong, because there was a dimension Harold had refused to add, and Tyler had just demonstrated what that dimension was worth. Harold came home on July 8th. Tyler picked him up at the Des Moines airport. Harold walked with a cane, but he was upright, and his color was good, and his eyes had the clarity that had been diminishing before the surgery, as the pain had worn him down without him acknowledging it. In the truck on the drive back, Tyler said there were some things on the farm he needed to show Harold when they got there. Harold said fine. They drove the 2 hours to the farm, mostly talking about the crop and the rain patterns and the price environment, the normal conversation of farmers who have been apart during a growing season. When they pulled into the driveway, Harold looked at the machine shed. The doors were open. Harold could see his John Deere fleet inside, all of it, exactly where it should be. And beside it, in the 3 additional bays that Tyler had kept deliberately empty for 6 years against exactly this kind of moment, 3 red Massey Ferguson tractors. Harold did not say anything for a moment. He looked at the machines. He got out of the truck with his cane and walked to the shed. Tyler walked beside him. Harold went to the first Massey Ferguson and looked at it. He walked the length of it without touching it. He looked at the logo. He looked at the cab. He looked at the condition, which was excellent, because Tyler had kept all three machines clean throughout the season. Harold went to the second one and did the same. Then the third. Then he turned around and looked at his John Deere fleet on the other side of the shed. He stood between the two sets of machines for a long time. Tyler waited. Harold asked whose machines they were. Tyler said they were leased. Harold asked what for. Tyler said, "Come inside and I will show you." They went to the shop office. Tyler had the accounting on the table. He had the client list. He had the acreage records. He had the revenue and cost breakdown. He had the net profit figure and the forward projection. He talked Harold through all of it for 45 minutes. Harold listened without interrupting, which was not something Harold usually did. When Tyler finished, Harold looked at the papers on the table. He looked at the net profit number for a long time, $107,000, one spring season. 3 machines he did not own. Tyler said, "If we buy the machines outright, the numbers in year 2 look like this." He slid another sheet across the table. Harold looked at it. He did not say anything for a while. Then he asked how much the machines cost to purchase outright. Tyler told him. Harold was quiet for a moment more. Then he opened the desk drawer and took out his checkbook and wrote a check from the farm account for the deposit amount Tyler had listed and slid it across the table. He said, if the numbers were that clear, the decision was that clear. Tyler picked up the check. He said Harold should know he had made this decision without asking first. Harold said he knew that. Tyler said he had not known how to ask. Harold said he knew that too. Harold said he should have been willing to hear the question. He did not say this easily. Harold was not a man who admitted errors easily. But he said it. Tyler nodded. Harold put the checkbook away and asked if there was coffee. Tyler made coffee and they sat in the shop office and talked through the plan for the full custom operation build-out for the following year. It was the most substantive business conversation they had ever had as equals, rather than as mentor and student. Harold asked good questions and Tyler had good answers, and by the end of the evening they had the outline of a partnership that neither of them had been able to imagine 6 months earlier. The 3 Massey Ferguson 8S.265 machines were purchased outright in August 2022. Doug Kramer drove out from Ames personally to deliver the purchase paperwork and to meet Harold, whom he had heard about from Tyler for over a year. Harold shook Doug's hand and looked the machines over carefully and asked about the service protocols and parts availability and warranty terms. Doug answered every question without sales pressure. Harold nodded. He said they were well-built machines. He said the cab technology was different from what he knew, but it looked functional. He said he would reserve further judgment until he had seen them work through a full season. Doug said that was a fair position. Harold said he appreciated that Doug had worked with his grandson without going around him. Doug said Tyler had been very clear about the situation, and Doug had respected his approach. Harold said that was good. He shook Doug's hand again and went back to the house. The 2023 custom season ran 6,200 acres across 9 clients and netted $189,000 after all costs. The 2024 season ran 8,800 acres across 14 clients and netted $263,000. Tyler hired 2 permanent operators specifically for the custom work. The Gentry custom operation became known in Hardin County as the most reliable and best equipped in the area. Clients renewed their contracts year after year. New clients came through referrals. Tyler turned down requests he could not fulfill at the quality standard he had established, which generated waiting lists, which further reinforced the reputation. By the end of 2024, the combined farm and custom operation was generating revenue that Harold's 4,000-acre solo operation had never approached. Harold watched all of it from a role that had shifted gradually but completely from operator to advisor. He was still on the farm every day. He still drove equipment during the home farm's planting and harvest seasons. He still knew more about the specific fields and the specific soil patterns and the specific microclimates of the Hardin County ground than Tyler would know for another 20 years. But the strategic decisions were Tyler's now. The custom operation was Tyler's. The Massey Fergusons were Tyler's. Harold did not say he was wrong to have refused custom work for 40 years, because Harold did not put things in those terms. But he had said once, in the shop office over coffee on a winter evening, when they were reviewing the year's numbers together, that he had spent a long time protecting the operation from risk and had not always been able to see the difference between protecting something and keeping it small. Tyler had not responded to that directly. It was not the kind of statement that required a response. It was the kind Harold made once and did not repeat. Tyler filed it in the category of things his grandfather said that would take years to fully understand. Harold's John Deere fleet is still on the farm. All 6 tractors, 2 combines. Harold uses them for the home farm operations, and he has no current plans to change that. When people in the county ask him about the Massey Fergusons, he says his grandson runs them and they are good machines. He says it without qualification. He says it the way he says things that are simply true and require no further comment. Tyler runs 4 Massey Ferguson 8S machines now, a 4th added in the spring of 2024 to handle the volume growth, and he has a 5th on order for 2025. The machines are red and they are parked in the bays that Harold kept empty for 22 years beside the green John Deere fleet that Harold built over 40. Both fleets are well maintained. Both produce. The shed is full in a way it has never been full before. Harold looks at it sometimes in the evenings when the light is going and the day's work is done. He does not say much about it. He does not need to. The numbers say everything. And Harold Gentry, who built 4,000 acres from 800 by trusting numbers above all other things, understands numbers better than he understands most things in this world. The numbers say his grandson was right. Harold does not need to say it out loud for it to be true.